Hi, welcome to Tea Time with Amy and Bev. Good morning, sister.
Good morning. How's your day going today?
My day is good. Woke up in a deep sleep to an alarm, so I did not want to get up, but I did. I got up, went to the gym. So here we are. Like, might have to have a nap later.
Nice. I understand that. That's kind of how I was feeling yesterday, actually. It was interesting because I got up and it's like I haven't been giving myself much slack. I haven't really had any days off because I've been doing the group thing or going to bridal showers, and this weekend I've got work, and then I've got a baby shower. It's for my grandson. It's awesome. But all these things going on. But it's with that being said, I'm not getting time for myself. Because I have my grandkids Monday, Tuesday, and Friday right now, which I totally love and appreciate. But we at some point we've got to take the time for ourselves. We have to listen. And yesterday it was like I was going to go to the gym and I had intentions because I was going to go pick up my granddaughter, and it's like I'm skipping the gym. I couldn't feel like I had to do anything at all. I've been having myself, and we've kind of discussed it, having myself in a space of like, I feel like I'm constantly having to do something, and that's distraction. And if people will recognize that, and I'm saying this for myself too, it's distracting. It's distracting you from being in the now. It's distracting you from receiving the message that you want to receive or messages. It's distracting you from life, where you're not appreciating the things that you could appreciate it because you're being distracted by these things. And our mind does the same thing. We get our mind going crazy and we can let it go off on a tangent somewhere, but that's just distraction too. And how can we get back to center? It's whatever works for you. So I find different ways, and we've talked about even recently, because I had seen you scribbling on paper, that I came home and scribbled on paper. And I've seen that done in order for others to connect to spirit or whatever. But for me, it kind of settles my mind. So it's kind of like a meditation for me in a lot of ways. And for me, it's got to be a pencil, because I've got it that the lead, it's like you become one with the pencil and the lead, the way that hits the paper, the sound is totally different. It really connects with me. And I found that interesting because I've seen a few people doing that, but it's like, it doesn't matter. I'm in the bathroom getting ready. I'm like, gosh, why am I feeling like this? And the first thing that I saw was scribbling on a piece of paper. Is like, that could take care of it right now. I don't even have to spend 5 minutes doing it or anything. It's just taking that time. And then finding when I have the down times or whatever, just to do it anyways, because it helps me. It's keeping me present. And not that I'm not listening, because it's I don't know, it's just weird. It's like it opens up another way where you're listening. You're experiencing more things at one time, I guess.
Yeah. Well, I'm just gonna say I didn't sleep good Sunday night either, and didn't get much sleep. And I woke up Monday and I was like, there's a freaking new moon coming. Is the new moon energy's here. I mean, the new moon's tomorrow, and I'm just like, okay. And now I got that piece. And I did take a nap yesterday because I was exhausted. And then today waking up in that deep sleep. But yeah, just giving yourself permission. I mean, it's huge. And even if you need to hear us say, give yourself permission. I know for myself in my life, there were things that I needed other people to tell me it was okay.
Yeah.
And we forget, because when we were little, we needed permission from the adults around us who were in authority. And as adults, we're still living from that space, and we're looking outside of us for permission to do things. And once you start learning or start practicing that, when you give yourself permission to do something, give yourself permission to have a nap, or even if you call in sick to work, I mean, what are you going to do, or what is necessary for you in the moment to give yourself permission? Because you're the one that has to do it. Don't wait for somebody outside of you to do that. My permission was about beliefs. Giving myself permission, not giving myself permission, but hearing somebody tell me, well, your beliefs could change and you can change them. And it's okay. Like, they had to say those words. And I'm like, wait, what? So that was kind of my first, where it really sunk into me that it's okay. I'm an adult. I can make these choices, and it's okay. I don't need to wait for somebody else to tell me it's okay. So, and
It's true.
It's important. So
It's true. It is true to trust ourselves. The one thing that's flashed in my mind is I remember my mom when I was a teenager crying because she had to go to work, and making herself do it, and then finding myself doing the same thing because she was a single mom for a long time, and she worked 3 different jobs. She was on the hustle, right? We're in a small town. There's a lot more here there now than there was, but it's like she was doing the best she could, of course. And single. She was single with 2 daughters, so she was doing all that stuff. And then even once she had gotten remarried, it was still, she was crying to go to work because she was forcing herself to go to some place that she didn't want to go. And it's like that can open up so many, I want to say, a can of worms in a lot of ways, because if we look back, we kind of made ourselves do things because we didn't want to do them. But we were being told that that's what we were supposed to do. And instead of trusting in the process for ourselves, trusting and knowing what's good for ourselves, because people always have advice, but we've got to trust and know what's good for us. And at that time when we're younger, we don't really have that opportunity to kind of buck against the system. Otherwise, you're the black sheep, or you're the, you know what I mean? You're being disobedient and you're creating more havoc for the whole family. But at the same time, each individual is like trying to fight against that push. Like, don't push me. Don't try to stifle me. Don't try to control me. All these things. And when we were in that space of not wanting those things, we experience more of those things. So because we start pushing against those things. But it's just interesting that you kind of tapped into that a little bit, because I could just, like I said, I could see my mom forcing herself to go do stuff. And it's like yesterday I had that moment that it's when I made that decision, like I'm just not going to the gym today. I felt emotional about that decision because I was honoring myself instead of just making myself go do something because this is what I think that I have to do. And that's just the tip of the iceberg, right? The minds goes, you keep yourself busy with different things. And then you've got so many different people that are in your experience, and they've got ideas, and they want things to be a certain way, and they think it should be this way or whatever. But it's like, we've got to honor ourselves. We've got to listen to what our guidance is, because when we start looking outside of ourselves so much, we lose our compass again. We start getting lost again, just like a child in so many ways, because we were told, oh, well, you have to go to school. I have yet to. Now, my grandkids will say they like school. There's aspects of school that they like. I don't think that they like the length of time that they're in school. And I don't agree with the length of time that they're in school either. I don't agree with the time that we have for employees to work like an 8 or a 10 or a 12-hour shift, sometimes even more than that. But these are my opinions, right? So each person has to listen to their own, what's working out for their process. But I'm just kind of bringing up some of this stuff because this is some of the struggles that I've noticed. I was doing great. Like, we always feel like we're doing great. We're on top of the world. And then all of a sudden something kind of changes a little bit. Maybe it's the planets. Maybe it is because of the new moon. You brought up not being able to sleep lately. And it's like, well, for probably the last week and a half, I've been waking up in the middle of the night, and I hadn't been. I had a period of rest for a while there. So because I don't follow all the planets and all that stuff, I do listen to some of the information that comes through from these people that do. And I understand. Just a second.
got some puppies in the background having a moment. It's all good.
They were voicing their opinions about the whole situation.
Right. We
I
don't
don't
like
know.
you working that long either.
Yeah, I don't even know I haven't seen anybody drive by, so it's probably it could be deer, cow, or whatever. So, or a car. There's vehicles that go by out here. We don't have anybody around, but there's properties for sale, so it's hard to say.
Yeah. So, yeah, I hear you, because my mom, she did that too. I mean, she worked a lot of hours. One of her jobs, she worked at night. She worked night hours, so I hardly ever saw her. She'd come home, go to bed, and I'm getting up and going to school. So, and then get home from school, and then she's off to work. So it was, our parents doing the best they knew how to do with the information knowledge they had, doing what they could in their survival mode, taking care of the kids. Also, they all had their own baggage too, of wanting the approval of their parents, wanting the love and acceptance and they're living up to their not good enough story, and just recognizing, I mean, that's part of, it's going to be a whole nother tangent. We don't need to go there, that direction. I just want to make mention of it, is that, you know, if you choose to do a forgiveness process, keep all that in mind. Your parents had their own stuff and then they had to raise some kids. And so, and we all, I mean, none of us had a book telling us exactly, because all the kids are different, right? And none of us are the same, and nothing telling us how to handle every single situation that came up. We're just doing it the best we know how. And so, you know, make sure, you know, give your parents, I know there's some tough childhoods out there, and I get it, and I hear you, and I know, and I my heart, you know, is filled with love for you. And your parents were doing the best they knew how at that time. So give them a little bit of ease and grace as much as you can, and then just grow from there. And each time, you know, you come back to it, there might be a little bit more ease in the process. So, and that just, it kind of takes me in, and you know this because we've already talked about it this past week, is kids. Like, it's so heavy on my heart right now. And it's more so, it's not the kids, it's the parents. So really, it's about the kids, but it's targeted towards the parents. That my suggestion, I'm trying to figure out how to articulate this. My suggestion is to empower your children. Empower your children with self-love, with self-confidence, with a good self-esteem, with all the tools, right? That if somebody says something to them or doesn't include them in something, or causes some kind of, you know, discord or resistance in a conversation, that your child is standing strong enough in their self-confidence and their self-love, that it's not gonna impact them as harshly. Maybe it might, you know, hurt their feelings a little, but it's gonna be easy for it to just for them to move through it, because they're standing in their own power within themselves. And I understand that you can't teach what you don't know. So our mothers, our parents, our grandparents couldn't teach us self-love and empower us with the self-confidence. Like, my mom didn't have self-confidence and she had a low self-esteem. So how could she teach that to me? So I grew up with low self-confidence, a low self-esteem, being introverted. I had to learn extroverted qualities. I had to learn to be able to use my voice. I had to learn to have conversations with people, because I'm the person that sits and observes. I listen and observe, and I don't engage until I feel totally comfortable with you. That's an introverted lifestyle. Like, we don't. And I was called a bitch for so many reasons because I didn't speak. Like, I would just sit there and listen. And so parents, learn how to empower your children. And it's standing in that self-love for yourself as a parent, learning those tools, because when you're learning it for your children, you're going to learn it. And when you learn it for yourself, there's benefit for all. And I know that many parents would say, I don't have time. It's too hard. All the stories, all the stuff. But really, I think the underlying story is, I'm good the way I am. There's nothing wrong with me, which probably true story. I'm not going to disagree with that, because you're perfect just the way you are. And we can do and be better. And the way we can do and be better is be and do better within ourselves, so we can teach our children to do the same. And then they can grow from that to be and do better within themselves, whatever that looks like. So I just needed to put that out there. If you want to have a conversation about it, I'm game. I just, I want parents to understand that when your child comes home and is feeling bad, sad, depressed because they weren't loved and accepted by the kids at school, and the finger is being pointed at those children that they were rude, they said mean things, they didn't include my child. You're given this like 6, 8, 7, 10, 12-year-old power over you and your child because you're saying, because they did this, we feel this way. Well, nobody can make you feel this way. And your child learned it from somewhere. So the significant adults in their life, they learned that the people outside of them have to act and be a certain way in order for us as the parent and the child to feel good. And that is absolutely not true. And even as an adult, it is absolutely not true. It doesn't matter how your boss acts. It doesn't matter how your coworkers are. It doesn't matter how your parents are. It doesn't matter how your friends are acting. It doesn't matter how the grocery store clerk's acting. It doesn't matter. If you're standing strong in your self-love and you're having an absolutely amazing day, and people outside of you are just rude and disgruntled, if you're standing in your own power, that's not going to matter to you. It's you're going to observe it. You might notice it, be like, they're having a bad day. I'm going to keep going on about my day and keep having a good day. Teach your children that. Teach your children that when you're blaming these other children for the way your child is feeling, you're saying it's their fault and they have the power and control over my child. And when you're doing it as the parent, you're also saying that that child has power and control over you. So we got to change that narrative. We got to change that belief system. We got to change something to empower yourself so you can teach your children to be empowered. And there are plenty of tools. So I tell you what, I had somebody post, this is why it's heavy on my heart, because somebody posted it on Facebook about their child, the whole thing that I just talked about. And I made a comment, and this is the way I see it. It was when you ask, just like what Bev and I have been talking about for like over a year now, when you ask for guidance, when you're asking for information and knowledge to help you move through something, when you're asking, like, it is delivered. And like 2 days later, because I'd been thinking about this social media post, and I was thinking about it, and I'm like, okay, universe, we need some guidance here. There's gotta be tools and information that's gonna help parents help their children. Bam. I go on YouTube. I was kind of searching for something else, but what shows up? Dr. Joe Dispenza talking about raising children. What did I do? Bam, I shared it with this lady who made the social media post. Then I go on to social media, and I'm just scrolling through my feed, and bam, there's somebody with a masterclass about how to help your children with anxiety. What did I do? I shared it with that lady. Scrolled a little bit further, there's another one, shared it with that lady. I'm doing my part. Like I'm sharing the information with what's coming to me. What she does with it's her business. I'm not in control of that. But what I'm saying is that there are lots and lots and lots and lots of tools that people are out there teaching and guiding and coaching, and you have to utilize the information. That is being empowered. Being a victim to your circumstances is saying it's their fault. They did this to me. They did this to my child. We got to get out of that story. I'm just in all aspects of our lives, we got to get out of that story. I'm just like, even for myself, like I'm over it. Like I'm done. Like let's move on past this conversation. So, okay. Do you have any input, Bev, or you just like She's on.
No, it's just, I do have some input. I was just thinking about some of the stuff, and it is to empower the kids, and it's also to recognize some of the stuff shows up for us, which can sound kind of harsh, but some of it shows up for us to see, I want to be different than this. I don't want to treat someone else the way this person's treating me. So we have an experience, and we can be the victim and hold on to that experience, or we can be empowered by that experience and then step into that space of, I don't want to treat someone else that way. And then the next time that person has a response to you that way, the way that we handle something with someone else that's in that space, when they're dishing out stuff like that, they're coming from a hurt place. And then we could respond to that so differently by looking at the person and then really listening to what they said and thank you, I hear what you're saying. And then that's it. And it's like you just kicked out the angry stick that's been holding them up, supporting them for them to be like, wait a minute, this has threw me off balance. So it gives them an opportunity for their growth. You know, I'm just using that as an example because I wasn't there in the experience. If I was there in the experience, it'd be different. Did I have responses such as that when my kids were growing up? Yes, I did, because I grew up with what my parents did that was the best they could do. My kids grew up with the best that I could do. But since then, and this is an individual basis, you kind of get tired of being that way. And I'll tell you, I'm a totally different grandma because someone was different to me. No, I don't remember anybody playing with me as a kid. I don't remember any of that stuff besides my cousins, my sister. I remember playing with my brother. I never had adults playing with me or giving me that kind of attention. I don't even remember exactly my grandfather's grooming, but I know there had to be grooming because that was attention. It was attention, and then it made things acceptable. But when I hear all that stuff, it's like we have an opportunity to change this. We don't have to stay in this space. Otherwise, we're just kind of encouraging the same behavior that's going on worldwide. And then you got people that feel like they're being victimized when I don't care if people want to wear whatever clothes they want to wear. And it's like, if you're standing in your truth and you want to wear whatever you want to wear, you don't have to go out and fight the world about it. You just show up and just be yourself. And I think that's has been lost. And I'll go back to the tools. Like, there's tools that are out there, and it depends on where you're at. Are you spiritually minded? Are you more left brain minded? There are so many different people that are going to resonate out there with you. When you start searching and you ask your guides and your God, and however you want to say it, I need some guidance to help raise these kids. I want to show up best for these kids, but not just these kids. Every single kid that comes into my experience, the answers are going to show up. For me, I have found a lady that I will sign up for the classes. She offers a bunch of information. She comes from a spiritually based information. And I can tell you, it's not for me to give advice to my kids anymore, unless they're coming to me for my advice. And I'm not, you were actually responding to a post that someone's asking for help. Same thing. They're asking for help and you have advice, and it's up to the person, however they're going to take it. But I can be the template. I can be the example for my family and my kids to be different than the way they are right now. Do I find it abrasive sometimes if there's too much yelling? I do. Was I a yeller when I was raising my kids? I was. I used my voice all the time, which clearly means to me at some point someone had to use their voices with me that way as well, because we learn these things along the way and then we think, oh, that's acceptable. And it may not even have been in my experience directly. I may have witnessed it being done with another family. So I'm not even saying that that was my family, but we bring this stuff forward, and we can stay the victim and then not explore any avenues of ways of encouraging our growth and the growth of those around us. For me, it's about, I'm learning to love myself, and the more that I love myself, I love those around me even more, so that I want to help guide them into a space that empowers them. And which we've talked about even recently, having people in their lives that are supportive of them. Don't be just you be the sole person, especially if you're struggling with a lot of victim stuff. Seeking outside of yourself is very beneficial. And like you said, it's going to be beneficial for the person, because you're still dealing with your inner child that's having all these emotions and feelings. So by you taking any of these courses, or you finding any of these books, or whatever you gravitate towards, because your spiritual guides, your team, your inner compass knows which direction to go in, if you'll just take the time to listen.
Absolutely. So yeah, when I responded to that post, part of what I put in there was those kids who are acting quote unquote rude or bad, they're also doing the best they know how to do with the information knowledge they have, just like your child is. And they're doing what they know how to do to get love and acceptance. And if that's their programming from their home environment, of course they're going to take it into every other environment they're in. Of course they are. We do the same thing as adults because we're operating from that little person as well, wanting to be loved and accepted. And so just, I did offer up that information as well, because we have to understand, just like what Bev was talking about, like, was your mom a yeller?
You know, I don't really remember. I think that she probably was sometimes, but I just don't remember. I don't remember.
Okay.
There's so much I don't remember from
No,
childhood.
that's
So
okay. I'm just going to use this as an example though. Okay. Just bear with
yeah,
me.
I get
Say
it.
Bev's mom's a yeller. So Bev has to learn it from somewhere. So then Bev becomes a parent. Bev knows yelling. Yelling is discipline. Yelling is being in control. So Bev's a yeller. And then Bev's kids have kids. And so Bev's kids are yellers. In the meantime, things are changing in Beverly's dynamics as far as learning new things. She's like, I don't want to be a yeller. I know I feel like I'm out of control. I'm tired and exhausted the way I'm showing up in life. And the not good enough story, the people pleasing, the fixer, the taking the responsibility of everybody's problems, and everybody comes to me with their problem, right? It's just that I'm done. I'm tired. I'm exhausted. I'm depleted. So Bev starts learning new tools. Her kids are not. And then we have the grandkids. And so thinking about the dynamics of all of that Bev's learning new tools. Her kids are already adults. So now they're adults. They get to pick and choose what they want to do with their life, how they want to show up in their life, whether they want to use these tools that Beverly's learning or not, whether Bev shares it with them or not. However that works out. Bev's utilizing new tools. Now she's treating her grandkids differently. And now the kids are like, what the hell? You weren't like that with us. You didn't have patience with us. You were always yelling at us. I'm not saying that's a true story. I'm just using this as an example. So Bev's kids are now seeing Beverly different with the grandkids. And they're like, we would never get away with any of that. Right. So and Beverly's like, well, I have new tools. I know things. I know different things now. I know how I showed up when you were children. And looking back on that, I've had to forgive myself for the way I showed up in my life because I learned it from somebody else. This is how I knew how to show up in my life in raising kids. This is what I knew what it took to raise children. These were the tools I had at that time. Now I've been on a new journey. I've learned new things. I'm implementing them. I feel more peace. I feel more calm. I've created boundaries. I'm not being the people pleaser and the fixer like I used to be. I don't feel like I'm out of control like I used to be, or being the control freak. Like I am very much more peaceful and calm within myself. I have self-love. I am nurturing myself. I'm taking care of my container. And this is how I'm showing up now, which is benefiting her kids and her grandkids. But the grandkids are so much younger and so much receptive to the information that Beverly now has that they're going to pick that up very quickly than Bev's children. So this is like when you lay it out and you look at the whole like picture, it brings things more into understanding than when we just say, well, your kid's rude to my kids and I don't like it. Well, tough shit. Those kids are showing up how they know how to show up. And like Bev said, they're doing it because they're wanting to be seen and heard. They're doing it because they're wanting to be loved and accepted. And that's how they know how to show up. So we got leaning into compassion. You learn, to me, compassion follows forgiveness every single time. compassion follows forgiveness. When you have forgiven yourself for how you showed up in the way you raised your children, now I have compassion for my children. Now I have compassion for the parent yelling at their child in the grocery store. Now I have compassion for the parent who is pulling their hair out, having with 3, 4, 5 kids and having so much on their plate, working a full time. I have compassion for in much bigger ways. I can have compassion for the little tyrant brat that's showing up at school. Leaning into compassion is because we all want love and acceptance, even as adults.
Yeah, and it's all about love. It really is. And even if I see my kids yelling at the grandkids or whatever, I can see the abrasiveness. I can see the energy being so big and it's yelling over the other person. And that very moment, there is not love in that space. I'm not saying that the people don't love, but there's not love that's coming from that space. And for me, even, and this is a great lesson for me, even to witness that, because I walked out of the space because it didn't feel comfortable. So I left the energy. But for me to be in that space, which is okay, but I can send love to that space instead of thinking, well, that's bullshit, or I wish they would stop acting like the way that I used to, or whatever the words, whatever the terminology is. But it's to be in that space of love. So how can I judge them from where they're coming from right now? I can only be that space of love. Because I'm still being what it's an opportunity for them to see that they have an opportunity to be different than they are right now. And to recognize this isn't coming from a space of love. And to recognize that other child needs love too, but has learned that we all know any attention's good attention. It just is. I witness it. I watched my grandson push buttons on mom and dad. And I watched them, how they react, because that's like immediately they're getting all this energy bursting to them, like coming right at them. And it doesn't matter if it was good or bad, because you still looked at them. Even when you're yelling at them and you run down the hall and you're talking to them because they're not listening to you, because they can't hear you. And it's to understand at that very moment when you're yelling, they can't hear you. But when you get down to their level and you start talking to them, because how would we feel being the adults right now and your boss, because this is like in a parental role, is now coming in and yelling at you and standing over you? How do you feel? Well, you're probably going to tell them to F off, eat dog do, and you're probably going to be like, huh, peace out, I'm out of this job. You're not going to put up with the crap. But yet we're because we were forced as kids to endure a lot of that energy, because that was our attention. So it was the same thing. But how can I change it? There's a bee like just hovering right outside the window, nice and slow, just like it's paying attention to everything I'm saying. Oh my gosh, that's weird. But to be in that space, if we're anything other than love, then we're not learning. Honestly, we're not expanding. We're not helping anybody in that space. We're not encouraging. That is not the fertile ground for confidence to grow. That is not the fertile ground for love to grow. You want kids to treat the other kids better, but there's got to be role models. And remember, the role models that are around all the time, even maybe some of the instructors that they might have in their classes or whatever, there's people have different ideas of how another child should be raised, or maybe they don't resonate with that kid or whatever. It doesn't matter. But it's just recognizing we're forgetting to give attention to the kids in a loving space. We're not encouraging, like when they do something great, our people are like, yeah, you're doing such a great job. Because that right there, I've watched it with my grandson. I've watched it with a gentleman at the gym, and my grandson's doing stuff and he's just working out and he's like, yeah, you're doing it so good. You're doing great. He couldn't get enough of that attention. So now every time he comes in, he's like, where is he? Is he here yet? Is he going to be here right pretty soon? Awesome. And then every time he comes in, if Colton asks for anything like that, like he says, next time I come in, I'll bring in my motorcycle. Which you got to pay attention to how you resonate with all this stuff, because I can tell you with this person, I trust this person. There's no worries there, but to be aware. But he'll go out there and let him sit on it. He watches them. We've done that with him, and he gets so excited because he encourages that. Why? Because this person, when he was a young boy, was bullied. He was bullied, but look at what happened to him. Look what changed from him. Look at how much of a loving, nurturing person this is. We don't have to go through a whole life to get to that point, but we have examples around us all of the place. And gosh, there's just too many times when your child's in a relationship with someone else as they get older and they're in high school and stuff, and then they break up with them, it breaks your heart because it's breaking their heart. But it's that those times it's like, okay, God, help raise my energy up because I want to be a better role model, and I can't give to my child what I would hope for them right now. I can't, if I'm crying because they're hurting right now, how am I helping to facilitate love, joy, and happiness into them, and to understand that this is a process and that things don't always work out the way we think that they should at the time, but there's such a bigger picture if we just hold out. It's there's just so much for us and when we're empowering others, we're empowered. When we're helping others, we're being helped. When we're loving others, we're being loved. Like all these things, everything, it's an ebb and flow. There's always a flow. And if we can remember at that exact moment, am I acting from a space of love right now? If I'm feeling anxious and I'm yelling or I'm doing any of those things, I'm not in a space of love. I'm not. And it's not a bad thing. It's not like, oh, here I go again. I'm going to go beat myself up for the next 45 days or the next year because I've been a lousy parent. It doesn't serve me. It was an experience. Simply, it was an experience. I haven't gone through a lot of stuff that maybe some other people have gone through. So it's, for me, but I've gone through the processes. I've gone through the processes to know that I can't hold another in darkness and then keep myself in the light. It doesn't work.
It's not a do as I say, not as I do.
100%. You're not to be seen and not heard. You're meant to be heard. You're meant to be seen. And that's what I want that for all kids. So when I go to the park with the kids, I got all the kids from the park, wanting to play. Oh, can you push me on this? Can you do this? Hey, can I get on there too? Of course you can.
Yeah.
We're going to take it easy. So let's just enjoy the ride.
Yeah. And I had to grow up pretty quick in my childhood. So I was an adult before I was 10. So I'm just saying. But you gotta think, you're an adult, you've been through life experiences of whatever age you are, and you have a child, and then you expect that child to understand you from the space of being an adult. And they don't, and they can't. They don't know how to articulate their feelings. They don't know how to articulate their words. What they do know is what you've taught them. If you taught them to yell and scream, they're going to have temper tantrums. If you taught them that the only time they get attention is when you're yelling and screaming at them, they're going to act up. Like, take note, be aware, have self-awareness. Like, you had this clean slate infant come into your life and you're programming it. You're pouring into it what it's going to have as it gets older, and know that child from 0 to 7, whatever you've poured into it, is going to utilize that information as an adult. This is why majority of women, especially if they've grown up in abusive situations, their mom has demonstrated being in an abusive situation, how that equates to love and acceptance. Majority of women, or majority of girls who've grown up in abusive situations, when they get older, get into abusive situations because that's what they know. And that's how they know to show up to get love and acceptance, because nobody taught them how to love themselves. Nobody taught them how to be empowered, to have self-confidence. Now, there are people, majority of girls will end up in abusive relationships if they grew up in abusive relationships. There are the select few who go, this isn't right, this doesn't work for me, and they do go on the opposite end of the spectrum, and they are loving and caring and compassionate. It is, to me, I mean, if we bring in the spirituality part, it is, what is our spiritual path for ourselves? Is it like, it took me years to stop abusing myself, and I grew up in abusive situations. So what I learned was to abuse myself, and through that I get love and acceptance from others. by being in abuse. Like, it's what I knew. And then I realized, my actions toward myself, the stuff I was putting in my body, I was abusing myself. That was a harsh realization. I'm doing to myself what I don't want other people to do to me because I didn't like it. So I took that role on, and I didn't know anything different until I learned self-love, self-acceptance, self-awareness. Whew. But you got to be willing to take the step. You got to be willing to want to make that 1 degree difference. It doesn't have to be huge. It just means maybe you drink more water and less tequila. Maybe you drink more water and less sugary sodas. Maybe you move your body more instead of just watching Netflix every day. Maybe you learn to talk to yourself in a better way, and then then that helps you talk to other people differently. Helps better it may not help better your relationship, but it might create new relationships that are better. So, and it takes a change, one change, and you got to figure out what that change is for you, because it's going to be different for all of us.
It's true. And then the whole thing is a lesson, even for mom, because she got triggered, right? Believe me, I've been triggered. I mean, and especially when it comes to your kids, because mama bear wants to come out automatically. It's like, what?
Right.
But on the other side of that, it's just recognizing, oh, wait a minute, I'm being triggered. So now I have something to look at for myself and find out why it's showing up for me, because this is a learning lesson for me. And now it could be a learning lesson for my child. So it's the same thing as when I tell people when they come home and the kids, because the kids are always happy and they want to come in and see you because they want to love on you. And I haven't seen you all day long until they get to a certain age, because they've learned how to be around you. So if you're not excited every time you come see your kids, they're not excited, that you don't even see them when you come in the house. They're not even showing up to say, hey. But when we're in that space, our kids are always running in to be loved and to be seen. And we can empower that. That's awesome, because we should be excited, but we get caught up in our daily activities. So when that happens, it's coming home and being like, I'm so happy to see you right now, but I need a few minutes to myself. I'm going to go get myself a timeout to honor myself so I can breathe for a little bit, to drop off a little bit of maybe I brought home some work or something like that, but to get rid of it. And then you come out. That way you can let them know, when I come out, I'll be able to spend more time with you and I can be the best version of myself for both of us. Because when we're not the best version of ourselves, we feel it. It's not even just that they feel it. And then now we create a situation. Now we have remorse, regret. We're grieving because we could have done things a little bit differently. Oh, there I go. I did it again. It doesn't have to be any of those things. You have to genuinely want to make a difference and make a change, and don't be a victim to your circumstances. And you're not just stuck on some, roller coaster ride that you're not allowed to get off of. You can choose to get off of it at any time. I've had to choose to get off of it, honestly, because I had to honor myself. It doesn't matter if I feel like, and that's another thing too, I may see like 2 or 3 these days. I'm just seeing 2 or 3. Occasionally I'll throw 4 on the calendar on a day. And it's like, that's not honoring me, because I feel better when I see 2. And I don't see any more than that. But then I started seeing other people to kind of get them into the calendar. Oh, because I know they're hurting and I need to get in here. I have to remember there's other people out there that's for them too. It's not just me. It's not just my job to do this. And also recognizing when I have people that come in, and we all have people in our lives that Freeman would call them an ask hole, because they're always asking for things, but they're never doing anything. But it doesn't matter. They can be an ask hole all they want to, all day long. Still keep giving them advice when they ask. Eventually they're going to hear it and they're going to resonate with it. Because I know people that were like that. They were always looking for everybody else's advice. And I don't know if that's because we're so afraid I feel like in some ways so afraid to make that decision ourselves, because we don't want to look like the bad guy, or we don't want to, whatever it is, because I've had parents that have been in my experience that have been like that. They're constantly asking everybody for their advice, including myself when I was no longer just a teenager. I was, I had my own kids, so asking me for advice, but never taking the advice, but always asking for it, and always like, oh yeah, I totally, totally get it and everything else. And maybe they did that moment because they latched into my energy and then they explained it and they understood it, but then they walked away not knowing what they were going to do with anything. because it's for us to follow those paths. It's for us to stay on that bread trail. It's not for uh, someone else, a teacher, a guide, or anybody else to be that person for you always. We are here to give out that one word or that answer or that little tool that made a difference for you because you just happened to come across our page. Really, there's so much. I find people that I listen to all the time, and I'll listen to a couple little things, and it's like I know that that's exactly what I need to hear. I don't need to hear the rest of it, and that's cool too. But it's just recognizing that. And how do you know? Because we got to slow down to pay attention to ourselves and hear how we're showing up for the world, honestly. And I've recognized that a lot within myself too. Just how am I showing up? And am I showing up from a space of love? It's pretty simple. Is it love or is it something else?
And you notice that in your body, that your body's your indicator.
100%. If it feels good, it feels good. And if it doesn't, it doesn't. It's pretty simple.
It's pretty simple.
Yeah.
And you got to think too that when you're allowed as an adult, so being an adult and a child does something and it triggers me to feel like I need to be in control of the situation, triggers me in being angry, triggers me in maybe being sad. That child in that moment is doing a great job for me to recognize what I need to look at within myself. Because why is a child triggering you? Why are you letting a child control you? Interesting, right? Because that child, if I'm feeling like I'm out of control, I don't have control over the situation. Okay. They're just showing you that you still have that within you. And that is something that you grew up with. That, when you're in abusive situations, our household, you don't have control. Like people are very controlling and you feel out of control. So when you get older, the way you are in control is being a control freak. And so when a child acts out and you're feeling like you're out of control, you don't have control of this situation, you don't have control over your container. Your container is, I could take a breath right now. This is an experience. This is something that's happening. This child's behaving this way. The way I react or respond to it is up to me. I can take a breath. I can handle this in the best way that I can. But when I take that breath and pause, I'm going to be more in a responsive mode than a reactive mode. I'm going to handle this situation much better than if I get triggered and come on with some strong controlling energy. Because what happens when you bring controlling energy, it's resistance, and they're going to just going to butt heads. There's not going to be a good ending to this situation. So in the moment, I know you're not going to do your personal work in the moment, but in the moment, you can take that breath and handle it the best way you can and recognize, take that mental note. There's some work to be done here within myself, and take the opportunity.
Because it is all about the growth, right? Because they could have gone through bullying by their parents, which is probably more than likely when they hit triggers like this, or bullied at school, because again, it's the triggers, but there's so much for us to grow from that. And then when we grow from that, we're no longer requiring our offspring to be the ones that have to manifest and take care of that control, that victim, that energy, when they can be something else because you've empowered them with something that you've empowered yourself with without even saying anything to them. So they no longer have to take on that role and to adjust the karma for the family. Because I feel like there's a lot of stuff that gets carried down through the family, and we have a tendency to start behaving in those manners because that's what we know. Those are the tools that we had. That's again why it's up to us to explore and go outside of that and be like, no, this doesn't feel good. We could be a victim to our situation. We could be the victimizer or the victor over other people and be the narcissist. We can do all those things. We're here on free choice, free will. We can do whatever we want. But it's like when you sit and really look at it and when you really feel, you don't want to be that way. It doesn't feel good. And I've noticed what's coming up for me too. It's like, even if you're right, you don't have to argue that you're right. The truth doesn't have to argue for itself. And I have been that person to argue for myself. And it's like, I don't have, I've caught myself several times now. I don't have to argue for myself. This is my choice. I can do whatever I want from this information. Thank you for sharing the information. I appreciate it. I can go on and do whatever I want. I don't have to take on that information. I don't have to, but it's an opportunity. Wait a minute. Did it trigger me? Oh, it didn't. Okay. Oh, but did it trigger me? Oh, it did. Okay. Now I got something I can go look at and work on that I don't have to carry around anymore, that I can be all the things that I would like to be. And the only way I can do that is by shedding the layers. I don't need these layers anymore. I don't need the armor on anymore when I'm around people. Sometimes I say that I don't need it, but I can tell you there's sometimes that it does feel like, oh God, it would be nice if, okay, Archangel Michael, can you come in here and help me out here a little bit, brother? Because I'm having a struggle. But it's like, that's an opportunity to ask for help. If you're really struggling with something, we've got all this help around us, spiritual. If you don't believe in it, that's cool. I mean, but what do you believe in? Like looking at those things and then exploring that. Why do you believe in it? Because sometimes we believe in things because someone else has told us that, because we were raised with those ideas. We were raised with the fear. It doesn't have to be that way anymore. It doesn't have to be fearful all the time. I hear my granddaughter and my grandson, they're always talking, oh, don't talk to strangers. No, you shouldn't talk to strangers, but what step's missing? The step to listen to their own intuition, because their intuition tells them when someone is a good person or a bad person. It's simple. They're either good or they're not. They're either coming across from an energy that feels good or it doesn't. It either feels like they're wanting something more, but how can we have to train them. And how can we train them? Well, us as parents have to learn how to trust our own intuition to feel these things and then start helping the kids work out this stuff and look at it. They already know. You know, we talk about them being from zero to birth, but I feel like from my perspective, is as soon as a child is, before they even come into this the mother's physical body, from our perspective, they're coming in and automatically getting a hold of wherever mom's at and wherever dad's at. They're automatically bringing all that information in, and that's part of a template that's already instilled within them without even teaching them anything. And now they're born, and now they're getting everything from their role models, from whoever's around them. That's what they're getting, and that's what they're learning from, even with the tools they've already gotten, even though they can still many times remember all where they just came from that space of love. And that's why it's so hard on some kids to come into here, because it's not always that space of love. It's harsh, but we're making the changes. Everybody can make these changes. It's just paying attention to how you're feeling and how you're presenting yourself. Like I said, it's simple. You're either coming from a space of love or you aren't.
Yeah. And when we're moving in that transformational journey of self-love, probably every one of us have heard, be the adult to yourself that you needed when you were a child. That loving, nurturing, compassionate adult that you desired when you were a child, you have to be that to yourself. Now, if you take that and look at that child who's being rude or misbehaving or acting out, be the adult that your child needed, your own inner child needed when it was little. Be that for them. And if it's the best I can do right now is say a prayer or send them love, then that's it. Don't interact with them. But you can hold a vibrational frequency of love toward them.
And that makes all the difference in the world. Just sit back and try it. Sit back and watch what happens. You may not see it right that immediate second, or you may. It could be either way, because I've witnessed it. I've had it both ways. It's pretty astonishing. It really is. And it's just letting go of control. And if someone's not willing to take your advice, you know, when they ask for it, it's okay. You planted a seed. And if it's something that's for them, because sometimes we think we know what's better for somebody else, but we really don't. We really don't. I've had that. I've been in that experience. You know, why can't they just do it this way? It would just save them so much time, and it would be so much happier. That's my perspective. Okay, so if I was listening to my advice, then I would know that advice directly was for myself, not probably anybody else. I can't remember the exact topics, but I know I've had these moments. So it's just recognizing, again, you're just taking the time to kind of really just be aware of what you're saying and what's coming from you and what advice is coming from you. We have all this wonderful information flowing through us. And especially when someone asks for advice, as long as we're not getting too much into our left brain stuff, when we're grabbing hold of all of our own experiences. If we can stay in the space of we're more neutral, we'll receive information from spirit will come through instead of using our um, own information that we already had, like our old templates, our instruction manual that we've created all the way up to this date, which is not, it's only accurate enough to keep your ego safe in a lot of ways, to keep your ego comfortable, to keep your ego satisfied as much as you can possibly keep an ego satisfied, if that's your main focus. Again, you go back into love and then you love your ego. When I see my youngest or my oldest daughter, many times when I've gone in, when I go in to see my inner child, a lot of times it will show up as my oldest daughter in a lot of ways. So I've experienced that quite often. And so at that time, the best thing I can do is give my daughter a hug just from my energy, to give her love from that space, to send her prayers, because I know that she's shown up for that reason, because she is that inner child of mine. I've carried her outside of myself as her, from the space that I was in when my kids came in, during the time frame that I was in, regardless of whether the father was there or not. They have picked up attributes from those people and then have brought it forward. And it's up to us on an individual basis to be I'm not my father. I am not my mother. Unless I'm speaking of the creator of all that it is, then I am about my father's work, because that's a different father. That's the real father as far as I'm concerned. So,
And when we see those behaviors in our own children, that's absolutely a time to start forgiveness work for yourself.
uh-huh.
I forgive myself for being the yeller when they were children. I forgive myself for showing up the way I knew how to show up with those tools at that time. I forgive myself for not being more loving and attentive and compassionate to their needs. I forgive myself for programming them with the information I had at that time, because that's what I knew. Like, there's utilize your children for the benefit of your own growth, because they're just mirroring to you. Because people, right, they get pissed because their kids are doing things that you did or do, but now because they're doing it, you're pissed, or it triggers you, or whatever that might, right, knocks you off knocks you off balance. Well, again, they had to learn it from somewhere. So you can't be mad at them. You just can't be mad at
Oh
them.
no,
Be like,
no, it
yeah,
is
I
totally.
did that. Yep, I did that. And also know we're all on our own spiritual journey here, right? And so those children picked you. They picked you. They picked you to be their parents. And so you showed up in the best way you knew how to be a teacher. And now they're showing up, and they showed up as a student. And now they're being a teacher for you, and you're being a student. Is just going to be this dance for the rest of your days together in learning and growing together. And now if that is being a student, this is what I call it. I call it being a student to your life, because you're open to that awareness of being and doing better. Now, if you're going to remain a victim to your life, then you're going to see how your child's misbehaving. They don't listen. They're rude. Like, it's like dancing with somebody who steps on your toes all the time, and you're just
Yeah.
like aggravated and frustrated. Well, then learn how to dance with them.
Yeah, because it kind of keeps the parent in a space of struggle when you're like that. And then it's like, then they have to ask, you have to ask yourself, because sometimes that's our motivation. Why do I keep myself in a space of struggle? Well, I'm distracting myself. What am I distracting myself from? Ooh, there's a good question.
Mm. And you expect the child to have the answer, and they don't. Yeah, I don't care if they're
Yeah.
15, 18, or 22. They don't have the answer, because they're operating from the information and knowledge that they have, that they've been programmed with, that they learned. So you, as the adult, as the parent, you have to go into your own inner self, your own inner connection, your own dialogue with spirit or God or the Father. What is it for you that's going to bring you into an alignment to listen to your own intuition and connect to your self-love.
100%.
You got to learn the tools. Like Bev and I just didn't show up and start doing these podcasts. I'm just saying we had to go through some stuff, man. And so we had to learn the tools that work for us. And
Yeah.
that's your job. That's your job. That's your responsibility. And we just show up every week to share what we know, what we've observed, what we're aware of, what we know works for us. And we just bring it to the table. And what you do with it's your business. Nobody can make you do it. If you're comfortable with the way your life is, great. If you're not, great. Do something about it. Just start making one change.
It's true. It's all a choice. It's a choice to be, do I want to stay in the space that I'm at, or do I want to change? And it's those little changes that we make that have such big, huge effects and such big ripples out to the world.
Yeah.
Because we don't have to stay in that same place. And I'm telling you, I've looked around the world. It depends on what we're looking at, but I can look around the world and I can see victim all over the place. I've looked around the world and I can see a lot of other stuff. I mean, I'm not saying, and I'm struggling with some stuff too that are going on in the world, because there's not the stuff that happened on 8/8. There's not a lot of sense to be made about this kind of stuff. But when I was pondering it a couple days ago or yesterday, because I was trying to have some understanding from spirit, and I was told there's a bigger picture here. So it's like because not that long ago we've heard, hey, the stuff's going to start coming to the surface so people can see it. They didn't say it was going to come with grace and ease. They said stuff was going to come up to the surface, that people are basically going to be calling themselves out. So there's been activities that have been going on that are against humanity, not for humanity, but that's where we step in, because we are for humanity. And how can it be the difference? I can't push against that stuff. I have to understand from spirit there's a bigger picture. And if I still don't know, that kind of helped me in a lot of ways. But we can still ask questions. I can ask, well, what does the bigger picture look like? And how does that look like? And I'm learning this just from that psychic medium course that I've taken. It's really asking questions, because spirit will show you things. Like, for instance, a spirit could show you a picture of a building, and then you can ask, well, let's go into the building. Show me what it looks like inside. Or like an example that Suzanne Giesman used was, she says, I saw a stamp. Now she said, I could have said, I'm seeing a stamp, and maybe your dad worked for the postal service, but instead she followed the trail from that stamp, right? So it's because we can do that on it's in every experience. It's not just psychic medium stuff, but it's to go deeper and to look at the things even more, to have a better understanding. And how do we know? We ask what's inside of yourself. Even if you don't believe in anything, or don't trust anything, or don't know anything, learning how to trust yourself by you asking these questions inside of you, you'll start getting information. All I can tell you, the most fun that I can have with it is just by playing with it every day and not being too serious, because we've all gotten too serious. And I also know that we're all not going to escape this experience alive.
I don't think
do we
is.
ever really truly, we don't ever truly die, but we're not going to leave this experience in this body.
Right.
And that's okay.
Yeah.
And we're all going to have many different ways that we decide to go out. And it's to also honor that, not to get so caught up in how people left, but that oh my God, good job. You guys made it back into spirit. You made it through your human experience to this point. And thank you, because now there's a bigger picture here. And because there's not a loss, there's always nuggets. There's always a nugget from everything. So when we find the nuggets about the situation that happened to Maui, when we find the nuggets for these things, then it becomes not a loss anymore. These people weren't a loss. They were standing for something in many ways, because from what I understand, I haven't had it in my personal experience, when spirit goes through these things, or when people go through these things and they have many that leave at one time, it is for a bigger message. There is bigger growth to be had by this. So it's on an individual basis. I have goosebumps from that. So that's good for me to know that that's another way of my body letting me know this is a confirmation of truth to me, and I understand that, and that gives me peace. So then every time I hear about something that's not feeling good, it's a prayer. It's sending love to these people, and it's hearing these people. And by the way, if people are feeling like if you can reach out and help out to any of these people, reach out and help out. Maybe not using the things that people have been asking for help for, and I'm not going to use any names because I don't know if it'll kick us off of YouTube or wherever. But there are some companies out there that we've all believed in for so long since we were kids that were always the places that would go and rescue people. And from what I'm hearing from other people, from the people that have had this experience, are saying they're not being helped by these people. So if you see like the GoFundMe's, or if you have people that you know they're like getting that information, there's other ways for us to get help to people. And even just our prayers are going to bring that help to people.
Yep. Yeah. So anybody in situation that is of struggle, if you can't help them physically, financially, materially, whatever, sending love and saying prayers is helpful, because you're holding that space of love. You're changing the energetic vibration frequency of that experience. And I just want to say that if you do contribute to any like GoFundMe things or anything like that, be sure you know the people who are doing it.
100%.
Be sure you know who set that up, and you have total trust in them.
Yeah.
So that's all I'm going to say about that. So yeah, lots of
Yep.
love to the people in Hawaii, and of course they're in our hearts and our prayers. And I'm just like, I'm excited to see what magic's going to come from this, and how it's going to be rebuilt, like how it could be even more amazing than it was. I mean, clean slate, right? A clean slate. Let's rebuild. What are we gonna create?
Yeah.
So it's up to the people on that island to do that. So, and we can hold the space, hold the vision for them, for sure.
And our imagination, our imagination plays such a big role in this too, because I could see like when we're in that space of, that meditative space, or that space of you're just feeling so much love, we're so much bigger than these little bodies. Our bodies may seem big, but we're so much bigger than these. I was just listening to another near-death experience, and he said the worst thing was being cramped back into that body when he had to come back in. So listening to that, but it's like I can see myself, my energy, and I can see like you and I holding hands and other people holding hands, and our energy being right over the top of that area that had received the damage, and the hearts that have been affected, and the people that have had the losses of other people, and raising that vibration. Our imagination is key in those kind of things, because we can change things. I can sit here and say, okay, well, yeah, I see that this company wants to come in and buy up all this stuff, and see how this was all displayed and how it was played out, because people are holding on to their land because they know that it's worth their value, and it's sacred and all this stuff. And I understand there's other factions that want to create these little cities that they want to create. And I just think that sometimes we get so big of ourselves that we lose track of the love and the real reason why we came here in the first place. And then we start deciding to be that bully, and we're just going to take it anyways. So this whole conversation kind of interplays with all the things that are going on there right now too. And the thing is, we can show up with anger, we can show up with a war, we can show up and take down places and people and everything else, but we're not coming from a space of love from that way. Now, if I'm in a space of, I think of Martin Luther King, right? If I'm in a space of love, then maybe it's not the war, it's not anything else, but it's just giving information to other people so they have an opportunity to see it from a different perspective, and empower themselves, and not feel like we're victims and we can't do something, because everything that we do does matter.
And just the key word today is empower. Empower yourself so you can empower your kids, so you can empower other people around you. And empowerment to me is standing within your true self. And spirit to me is true love and joy. And that is being empowered when you have that deep connection from that space. Good stuff today, Bev. Thanks for showing up.
Yes, Amy,
appreciate
thank
you.
you. For you too. I appreciate you.
And we appreciate our listeners. Thank you so much for hanging out with us. You could be doing anything and you chose to hear us and hear our perspectives, and share us with people you think may benefit from what we're bringing to the table. So and it may not be everything may not resonate with you as well, and so it's okay, but what pieces did, that's what you take, that's what you implement, and maybe later the rest of it might come to light for you, and maybe not. Doesn't matter. Just take what's working now. So with that, my friends, thanks for hanging out with us. Tea Time with Amy and Bev, and we'll see you next week. Take care.
Bye.